Another thing I want to talk about is raise sizes. Generally, early on in the tournament and to the midpoints, I will raise about 3 times the big blind. But when the blinds start getting higher, you can get away for the most part with raising about 2.5, 2.6, 2.7 times the blind, and it's going to be just as effective as a complete 3 times big blind raise. And that way, if you get in a situation where you raise it up and a player to act after you goes all in, then you will be able to fold your hand, especially if you're on kind of a blind stealing situation, and lose the least amount of chips. Um, so it's something I highly recommend, especially when the blinds start getting a little bit higher, that you lower your uh, raise pre-flops a little bit um, in relation to the size of the blind. So here we picked up ace king offsuit on the cutoff, so we're going to raise it up. We'll obviously be calling our re-raise here. Our hand is quite strong, five-handed. Alright, so we just had another player eliminated. We're now down to four-handed, and we are currently about third in chips, but just barely. It's pretty close between us and Stony Solid. So at this point, the game should really tighten up, and players are not going to want to be eliminated in fourth place, because then they get nothing. So I think this is a good spot, especially against River One Man and Stony Solid, to attempt to steal a fair amount of blinds and kind of slowly build our stack without getting ourselves in too much danger. Um, Again, this aces, ace, XX, ES, DK seems to be have a big propensity to be on the loose side, so we can't really be trying to steal against him. It's much better to be value betting against a player like this, and basically betting your hands as strong as you can for value. You see there, he just shoved into an open small min bet. So I think I'll just keep taping now that we're four-handed, because we're going to be getting a lot of hands and making a lot of plays. Obviously Jack Deuce offsuit is too weak to defend our big blind, so we will just fold. Here we are going to fold an ace 9 offsuit. It's a relatively strong hand, but I feel like when he bets 480 with about 2,000 behind, it's unlikely that we have much fold equity if we do shove there. So I definitely am going to wait for a better spot than that. Here we're in an interesting spot. It was folded onto the small who just completed. He has folded before in the small, but he hasn't yet tried to steal our big blind. So we just went ahead and checked behind with a pretty marginal hand. Obviously flopping top pair heads up is a pretty good spot, so we went ahead and raised. He quickly called our raise, and we did turn a little bit of a gut shot, and then he just open shoved into us. This is a pretty tough spot to be in. I don't think we're beating a lot. I really don't think he's going to sum my bluff here. He could have a pair and a straight draw, something similar to our hand. But I think at this point we're just going to have to fold our top pair here. It's a pretty good play by him just to shove like that. And so he ended up with, he did show that he had second pair with a straight draw as well. So pretty interesting play by him. So he ended up showing a 6-8 for a straight draw and a pair of sixes. And here, we know this player is very loose to be calling, but we do have a premium hand with pocket sevens, so we are going to raise. Depending on the texture of the board, we'll decide whether we want to continue, and that is a great board for pocket sevens. So we'll go ahead and bet 800, and then just take it down. Here we're going to raise with the queen 8 offsuit on the puck. We know Riverman is reasonably tight from the big blind, and we also know that this player is reasonably loose from everywhere. And again, we're just going to continuation bet. Fairly dry board, just one face card. We're hoping to take it down on the flop. Obviously, if we get check raised, we're just going to have to fold here. And so that's what we do. Here we have significantly less than 10 big blinds, so we're just going to shove this Queen King offsuit. Four-handed, it's definitely a strong enough hand, and we just want to put as much pressure as we can on our opponents. There's no sense making a small raise there and kind of giving our opponents an option to try and re-raise us out of the pot. The general rule of thumb is anytime you have less than 10 big blinds and you're the first one in, if you're going to be raising, you should always be just putting it all in there. Alright, so we have the short stack all in with a dominating hand, and the big stack hits a jack. So looks like we're going to be down to 3 players. Unfortunately, we're a bit of a chip dog, but we should be okay. Here, the very first hand, three-handed, I'm going to shove a King 7 offsuit. Again, it's better than the average hand, and we have Stony in the big, who's quite a bit tighter than the Ace XX player. Stand up calling with a worse hand, so we get it in as a little bit of a favorite. We got pretty lucky there hitting the king because they did flop a 9, so we ended up doubling up there. So that's a great result. And again, quite a loose call by Stony. I'm surprised that he would have made that call there with a queen 9. But I guess when you're playing a small stakes sit and go, people make kind of unusual plays quite often. I think in this spot I'm going to fold because Stony limped in, and anytime you have both your opponents in the pot when you're three-handed, it's a great spot to be in because there's a chance that they could knock each other out and you move up in the money. But I think when I'm in the small blind and Stony has folded when we're three-handed, I'm going to be much more apt to limp in against this Ace XX because I know he's very loose pre-flop, and I feel like I can definitely get value when I flop a hand against him. So against a lot of either tighter players or less active players, I'd be much more inclined to raise from my small. But I think against this kind of player, I think limping in, like in this spot for instance, limping in is a better result, or is going to be a better situation for me. And Queen Jack offsuit, again, I mean his range is pretty big. He's going to be raising a lot of any aces, a lot of kings, but I'm not going to stack off when the blinds are when I still have 10 big blinds. Even though he has been raising quite a bit on the puck, Jack Queen offsuit is just well, it's not ahead of a lot of hands, to be honest. Alright, so it was called by an ace 10, and it looks like we're going to be now heads up. So Stony's got kicked out. We are heads up, about a 4-1 chip dog. We do have some play left, got about 10 big bets, so we don't necessarily have to go crazy here. Here obviously we're just going to fold our jack high. Again, as I said earlier, I feel like he likes to play post flop. He might have changed his strategy. He does raise here, so we're going to be folding. But there's a couple times that he let me limp in from the small blind, so that's now going to go out the door, and we're going to be raising every time on the puck if we have a reasonable hand. So obviously we have to fold this 5 deuce and fold this 3-5. Hopefully we'll get to see one more face card before this heads up section is done. So he did just limp there on the puck. He won't be folding to a shove very often, I don't think, with that kind of a chip stack, so I'd rather just see a flop and try and flop something before I get it all in. Here we're now at the point basically where the blinds have gotten up there and we're going to have to get it in with a big range of hands. So we got it in with 8-9. Fortunately we have him dominated, but he does hit his 5 and suck out on us. So we ended up getting second place. Overall, I feel like we played fairly well. I hope you learned a little bit as far as strategies for playing early and then mid-level and then near the end of the tournament. And I hope you do well in all of your sit and goes. This has been Howie for epokervideo.com, and you have a great day. Peace.